Only 32% of UK drill songs make it to the charts, and Lil Prezi calls it a revolution. When your rebellious beats are drowning in a sea of sameness, every track's a protest song against the algorithmic overlords. Mustang Panda unleashes Snake Diskiv USB worm, then calls it just another day at the office. When your digital espionage toolkit sounds like a B-movie plot, even yokai demons are impressed by your commitment to chaos. Only 7% of countries enact heat protection laws and governments call it progress. When the bar for caring about human life is set at slightly above literal melting point, you know compassion's been outsourced to the lowest bidder. Trump skips normal state visit protocols and UK rolls out the red carpet anyway. When the circus comes to town, even the stiff upper lip can't resist the allure of a good spectacle, complete with popcorn and pomp. Jefferies analyst insists Oracle isn't in a bubble, while its stock inflates like a hot air balloon. When tech stocks rise like helium-filled unicorns, analysts might just be the ones handing out the party balloons and blindfolds. Hamilton's Guns and Shifts charges into history, while Broadway tickets soar like cannonballs. When the price of a night at the theater rivals a month's rent, perhaps the real revolution will be fought at the box office. Democrat wins special election in Minnesota, but the seat's former occupant is remembered, not replaced. In politics, legacies are built on the backs of the departed, while successors inherit the stage without the spotlight. Wedbush's Ives predicts tech stock surge, like the Titanic spotting an iceberg as opportunity. When Wall Street whispers buy, remember it sounds an awful lot like bail when the ship starts listing. FCC chair threatens Disney over Kimmel's curt comments, because satire is clearly a national security threat. When comedians become the enemy, you know someone's afraid the punchline's aimed too close to home. Trump demands global peace while fueling chaos, proving irony's not dead, just running for re-election. When the arsonist sells you fire insurance, you know he's just stoking the flames for profit. Ministry of Defense blames online meetings for delays, as if screens are the real enemy. When generals wage war on Wi-Fi, it's not the tech that's cloudy, just the excuses. Garuda Indonesia appoints new finance director, promises financial flight, but turbulence is forecast. When balancing the books is harder than balancing a plane, maybe it's not the director's fault, but the airline's flight plan. Local Spider-Man swoops in to save couple, then swings off before authorities can even say web slinger. When your local superhero is more reliable than your local government, you know who to call when the going gets wet. ICG raises 3.15 billion euros for fund, calls it a European infrastructure game changer. Apparently, nothing screams infrastructure like North American investors eyeing European bridges and roads like they're on a shopping spree. $1.6 billion deal announced, claims office real estate crisis is history. Apparently, buying empty office buildings is the new optimism. Who knew ghost towns could be so lucrative? Tesla's self-driving software ignores train crossings. Some owners discover the hard way. Looks like Tesla's autopilot has a death wish. Maybe it thinks it's starring in the latest Fast and Furious sequel. Only 20% of Americans over 65 receive adequate dementia care, and politicians call it progress. America's dementia care crisis is like watching a slow-motion train wreck and hoping someone remembers to pull the brakes before we all forget how. Nature charges €28 monthly for access, then claims it's a deal. Who knew paroxysmal metabolism could spark more heat than the fiery debate over journal subscription fees? They're burning wallets, not calories. Federal Reserve invites Trump ally and his enemies, calls it productive. Nothing like a cozy Fed meeting to prove the art of diplomacy is just high-stakes speed, dating with a side of grudges. Only 15% of athletes show brain decline, and sports leagues call it a minor risk. Turns out, getting your bell rung isn't just a ticket to the Hall of Fame, it's a VIP pass to the neurological funhouse of doom. X-Japan releases Rose of Pain in 1991. Then Visual Kei explodes into a global phenomenon. Like a gothic symphony on speed, they turned glam into a revolution of eyeliner and existential angst, leaving the world dazed and fabulous. The dead weather electrifies with The Difference Between Us. Then the line between rock and electronic blurs into a wild, pulsing heartbeat. Jack White and Alison Mosshart charge the air with enough voltage to light up a city, proving rock and roll is a shapeshifter in leather boots. Sweden bans mobile phones in schools, but most schools already confiscate them. If a tree falls in a forest, but no child is tick-toking it, does it even make a sound? Emmy Awards highlights last 3 minutes because attention spans are shorter than acceptance speeches. Who needs hours of glitz when you can get your Hollywood fix faster than a TikTok dance challenge? Putin trades 3 Americans for secret terms, proving international diplomacy is just a high-stakes game of human poker. When life hands you political hostages, just remember, they're not pawns, they're bargaining chips in the world's most dangerous casino. Federal Reserve cuts interest rates by a 1/4 point, claims it's a strategic move, while inflation parties like it's 2021. When the economy's a dumpster fire, a 1/4 point rate cut is like tossing a water balloon at a raging inferno. Meta unveils smart glasses at Connect 2025, promising relevance this time without the usual vaporware aftertaste. When tech giants say, "This time it matters," it's like a magician promising the rabbit won't ditch the hat halfway through the trick. AI tools digitize old weather data in the Congo, claiming a climate model revolution from dusty archives, dusting off ancient data so AI can forecast the apocalypse. It's the 21st century's equivalent of reading tea leaves with a supercomputer. Only 20% of junior researchers plan careers, while institutions call it a luxury. In science, career planning is like finding a unicorn in your lab, mythical, elusive, and usually not funded by your grant. Only 12% of Dylan fans read comments, and Reddit calls it engagement. In the digital age, even the gates of heaven have a comment section, mostly filled with links to nowhere and existential spam. EU calls trade halt with Israel propitiate, and Idivkovich claims it's fair. When your moral compass is a political weather vane, every crisis becomes a convenient excuse for tariffs dressed as principles. Judge drops terrorism charges against Mangione, but murder still stands. Apparently, plotting to kill the healthcare kingpin isn't terrorism if you succeed. It's just a really aggressive form of negotiation. Albanese fails to secure a defense pact with Papua New Guinea despite photo ops. Apparently, shaking hands and smiling isn't enough to convince a neighbor to play defense partner, especially when you're borrowing their sugar. Netanyahu envisions a super Sparta Israel, prepping for economic isolation. Turning a nation into a fortress might sound epic, but when your economy's a one-man band, who's left to play the encore? ECB predicts Eurozone wage growth under 2%, defying inflation. When your paycheck's barely crawling but prices sprint, it's like running a marathon with shoelaces tied. Who's the real winner here? Only 5% of Malawians see economic improvement, and President Che Guevara calls it stability. When the cost of living feels like a never-ending uphill climb, stability sounds like a cruel joke told by the out of touch. Only 12% of synth enthusiasts recognize Parker's influence, yet the artist claims universal appeal. In a world of electronic echoes, claiming universality is like shouting into a void and expecting a symphony in return. DVDA releases I Am Chewbacca at 42 minutes long, declares it concise. In punk rock, a song about a Wookiee, longer than a sitcom episode, is like calling a marathon a sprint. House passes 3DC crime bills, then Trump tweets law and order. It's a classic act in the authoritarian playbook. Legislate overreach while tweeting distractions. It's like trying to solve a leaky faucet by flooding the basement. Patel defends post about Charlie Kirk subject, then claims free speech. When free speech becomes the shield for spewing vitriol, we're not just bending the First Amendment, we're twisting it into a pretzel of hypocrisy. Only 20% of indie artists break through, and streaming platforms call it democracy. In the upside-down world of music, indie means you're free to starve creatively while tech giants feast on your dreams. Only 30% of 90s hits still resonate, and nostalgia calls it timeless. In the era of Eurodance, letting a boy cry was groundbreaking. Now, it's called therapy with a dance beat. Carol Ann Duffy writes a bombsite poem about Trump's UK visit, and irony isn't on the menu. When poetry serves up a banquet of metaphors, it's a feast of defiance against a state visit dressed up as diplomacy. Ivanov warns U.S. at inflection point after Charlie Kirk shooting, as America's moral compass spins like a broken weather vane when former presidents sound the alarm. It's a shame the current administration is too busy playing golf to hear it. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent labels 2 houses as principal residence, proving politicians can be in 2 places at once, at least on paper. When your moral compass is a weather vane, every direction points to whatever's convenient. ABC axes, Jimmy Kimmel Live. Amid writer's strike, as if late-night laughs are optional in the age of absurdity. When they pull the plug on comedy, you know the joke's on us, and it's not even funny. Conservatives dub Kirk's death a rallying cry, because nothing screams unity like a martyr with a media empire. When a figure becomes more potent in death, it's a sign that the living are running on fumes. Skunk. An ANSI serves Charlie Big Potato with a side of angst, because nothing satisfies like a crunchy riff and a lyrical gut punch. Alt-rockers know that when life gives you potatoes, you mash them into anthems of defiance. Nature editorial urges rail revival. Then governments continue to pave paradise for more parking lots. 200 years of rail, and we're still playing chicken with climate change while the tracks rust away. Reddit user submits less dudecks each morning, then wonders why rock isn't saving the world. In a universe where guitars wail louder than climate alarms, maybe we'd finally hear the message. Crank up the change, not just the volume. Germany's chancellor warns of economic ruin, then insists austerity is the only solution. Apparently, the best way to secure a future for younger workers is to convince them they don't deserve one unless they tighten their belts to the point of asphyxiation. Federal Reserve cuts rates, markets rise, then Wall Street celebrates as Main Street braces for impact. As usual, the stock market gets a sugar rush while the rest of us are handed the bill, proving once again that trickle-down economics is just a fancy way to say you're on your own. Researchers decode mTOR-C1 activation, then cells still have no idea why they're starving. Even as scientists unravel the complex web of cellular signals, the average cell just wants to know when it's getting its next meal, proving that even at a microscopic level, bureaucracy is the real Hunger Game. Only 32 indie pop fans upvote Baby's H pie ending, and the algorithm calls it a hit. In the digital age, it seems even the indie scene needs a bot army to break through, leaving us to wonder if the true indie spirit is now just a ghost in the machine. Only 42% of cloud platforms prioritize runtime visibility, while tech leaders claim it's the future of security. In 2025, it seems the only thing more elusive than runtime visibility is a decent explanation for why it wasn't the norm years ago. Federal Reserve cuts interest rates by a quarter point, calls it economic stimulus. In 2025, the Fed's idea of stimulating the economy is like giving a car a new coat of paint while ignoring the engine's smoke.
When your digital oracle's batting average is worse than a broken Magic 8-ball, maybe it's time to stop calling it a revolution and start calling it a tragedy in data.
Philippine government blames floods on nature, not nepotism or corruption. When the water's rising and the blame floats away, it's amazing how quickly those Nepo babies learn to swim.
Trump exploits Kirk's death to silence critics, and the First Amendment weeps. When the leader of the free world uses a funeral as a political gag order, it's like hosting a silent disco at a wake, only the music is censorship and nobody's dancing.
Federal Reserve hints at stability. Wall Street holds breath for rate roulette. When big bets are like big hair in the 80s, the only thing holding them up is hot air and hairspray promises. Paleontologists unearth ancient Lepidosauria claim it's the Jurassic Park of feeding habits. When your evolutionary dinner menu hasn't changed in millions of years, you know you've truly mastered the art of a timeless diet. Rob Arnott launches new ETF, claims it's revolutionary, as Trump suggests biannual earnings reports. It's like introducing a new flavor of ice cream while suggesting you only taste it twice a year. Innovation and control in one neat package. Putin sends drone into Poland, calls it a NATO test. It's the geopolitical equivalent of poking a bear with a stick and then acting shocked when it growls. Russia's version of a pop quiz. Waterbridge shares jump 25% post $634 million IPO, hailed as a liquid success. Wall Street's wet dream, turning water into cash while the planet thirsts. Welcome to capitalism's latest mirage, where pipelines flow with gold. Only 20% of hyperpop fans define Ravenna Golden's latest track as a masterpiece, and the algorithm calls it a hit. In the sonic blender of hyperpop, even the echoes of mediocrity get a remix. When everyone's a star, no one's truly shining. After promising transparency, the NSA silenced Reality Winner, labeling her a traitor for exposing Russian election meddling. In the grand theater of national security, whistleblowers are the actors who get booed off stage for revealing the plot twist. Truth is the real traitor in this tragic play. Salesforce unveils Mission Force to rival Palantir, claiming AI integration will revolutionize defense. In the battle for Uncle Sam's affection, tech giants are like suitors, offering the same bouquet of algorithms, each promising a more secure tomorrow while eyeing today's lucrative contracts. Kenya issues arrest warrant for UK citizen, soldiers allegedly involved in murder. When the rule of law takes a backseat to international politics, justice becomes just another diplomatic dance where the steps are dictated by passports and power. Benjamin Schwartz draws America's welcome package, includes complimentary bulletproof vest. Nothing screams land of the free quite like needing armor to survive a trip to the grocery store. Welcome to the Wild Wild West, 21st Century Edition. Steven Tyler, Joe Perry, and Youngblood release My Only Angel, promise to redefine rock by adding a British twist. Aerosmith's dynamic duo meets the UK's alternative maverick, proving that even legends need a fresh face to stay relevant in 2025. Florida executes 12th person this year, claiming justice while setting a grim new state record. In the Sunshine State, it's execution season, where the state's moral compass seems as twisted as its gator-infested swamps. Battery industry pivots to next-gen tech, promises safety while juggling sodium, sulfur, and a dash of optimism. In the quest for eco-friendly power, the battery world is mixing elements like a mad scientist, hoping their concoction doesn't blow up in their face.
Only 30% of CDC staff support RFK Jr.'s pressure tactics, and he calls it transparency.
TikTok song trends for 5 seconds, thinks it's the next Beethoven. In the age of the infinite scroll, a catchy beat is just a sugar rush for your ears. sweet, fleeting, and forgotten by dinner.
Spotify tags Sophia Isella as indie, then drowns her in a sea of algorithmic sameness. When your music gets labeled like a mystery meat at a buffet, it's clear the industry wants creativity, just not too much of it.
Israel escalates bombardment as defense minister claims Gaza is burning. When leaders describe human suffering like a barbecue, you know diplomacy's been replaced by a pyromaniac's handbook.
When the Fed's rate cut is your financial GPS, remember it's the same guide that got us lost in the first place.
Trump slashes tariffs to 15%, yet Jan's exports to the US keep plummeting. Turns out, when you play economic whack-a-mole with tariffs, you eventually flatten innovation along with the competition.
SoundCloud blocks Crazy Town Remix blames your browser. In the grand tradition of tech support, the problem is always you, never the platform that can't handle its own updates.
Only 40% of couples try threesomes, but Slate calls it the ultimate fantasy. When your love life reads like a sex advice column, remember, fantasies can be fun, but reality doesn't come with a safe word.
Lo-Fi Horizon drops 3 versions, claims it's innovation, because nothing screams creativity like remixing your own chill beats into slightly different chill beats and calling it a musical revolution.
After promising transparency, StubHub gains 10% in IPO, then bets on controversial ticket resales. Turning concert dreams into price-gouged nightmares, StubHub's IPO proves that exploiting FOMO is still a solid business strategy.
India joins Russia-Belarus drills, rehearses nuclear launch. It's like practicing a trust fall with the kid who always drops everyone, while your so-called best friend watches from the sidelines munching on popcorn.
Trump celebrates Kimmel's suspension, networks replaced with Kirk tribute, then claim free speech is alive, silencing a comedian while honoring a provocateur, because nothing says liberty like muzzling the jester and crowning the court sycophant.
Only 32% of indie bands get mainstream attention, and AJR calls it success. When your music's biggest hit is an apology for mental breakdowns, maybe it's time to reevaluate the definition of crazy. When your defense strategy involves throwing wild anti-Semitic accusations, you're not just missing the point, you're actively setting the world record for moral limbo.
Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers' Swingin' released in 2012. Then Reddit users swing into action with HTML acrobatics. Because nothing screams rock and roll rebellion like a tangled web of misplaced code and digital nostalgia.
Claiming AI can reason like humans is like saying a parrot can write Shakespeare because it squawks in iambic pentameter. Impressive mimicry, but let's not confuse imitation with insight.
Tesla stock ends winning streak, but Musk pockets $38 billion richer. Nothing like a billionaire's consolation prize, proving that even in a losing streak, Musk's bank account still does pirouettes on a pile of cash.
FBI deploys robot after car rams Pittsburgh office. Calls it a targeted attack. When a car becomes an unsolicited battering ram, the FBI's idea of defense is to send in a robot. It's like bringing a Roomba to a knife fight.